Hello everybody and welcome back to The Hobby Musician. Now if you're brand new to the channel, we're so glad you're here and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Today's show is going to be yet another installment in our ongoing series where we try to mimic certain guitar or bass pedals using the modeler that I own. Now, the standard disclaimer that we put on these episodes is we're not talking about going into a modeler, pulling up a model of a pedal, and then trying to convince you that we're mimicking the real thing. No, no, no. We go out and we find effects for guitars and basses that were never designed and never put into the modeler in the first place. Then we try to think up creative ways of using things that are in the modeler to combine and manipulate and try to come up with an effect that comes pretty close to what we found. Now the focus of today's episode is going to be the MXR Freeze pedal. Now broadly speaking, what this pedal does is it's kind of the most simplified looper that you can imagine. Basically, if you consider playing maybe a tone or a chord, the MXR Freeze will then listen to what's going on in that moment of time, and when you engage the effect, it just takes that one little snapshot of tone and it smooths it up and then it loops it back, it plays it back indefinitely. So unlike a traditional looper, if you think about that, normally looping pedals will listen to what you play over a period of time. Maybe it's just a single measure, or maybe it's a few chord changes, and then it will play it back. But the MXR Freeze is kind of special in this sense, where it's really taking just a note or just the tone that's going on right now. Now, as we said, the Line 6 Helix does not include, it never came with, and they have not put in a model that's a one-to-one substitution for this. So today, we're going to try to see how close we can come to this effect using some of the other models in some creative ways. So right now, I'm going to get everything switched up and we're going to look at HX Edit so that you can see kind of the bones of this patch before we get to some playing samples. So hang tight. All right, so now we've got HX Edit pulled up, and I want to just start by saying, before I even began filming this episode, I really did a lot of homework to see if anybody else out there had kind of come up with a solution to this. And in fact, there are many people who have asked the same question, and many people who have posted ideas and shared patches that they've created up on Custom Tone. Some of those patches that I discovered, they had a lot of similarities, and some of those similarities are ones that I directly borrowed right into this because they were great and brilliant solutions. However, there was one shared aspect between all of the patches that I could find that I wasn't entirely satisfied with, so I have a unique solution for that. So this patch kind of includes that. Well, you can see up here that there are a lot of green blocks, and the reason here is green for Helix users, greens are delays, and the common thread that people tended to find that stacking delay after delay after delay, all with their own kind of different delay times, helped to create a wash of sound. Now the main goal here is, initially what we're going to try to create is an ambient tone. We're just going to have an ambient wash of sound, and then we're going to manipulate one of these delay pedals to kind of capture that ambient sound and then repeat it for us. So you're going to see up here, I actually do have 4 delay pedals. I have a delay pedal before the amp. Now the amp that I chose here is just a simple Fender Deluxe, just a really clean amp because I wanted the effects to kind of take over. I put a delay into the amp, followed by 2 modulations. So I have a chorus here and then I have a phaser. So the delayed signal is getting chorused and phased, and then the chain goes down to the bottom row here, and then I have 3 more delays. You'll notice, I want to point out the delay time. So the very first delay time, I just had a 175 millisecond delay. The second one, it's similar, but it's a 196, so just around 200 milliseconds. The third delay jumps up to 850.
And then the final delay is a 1.3 seconds. So you'll notice that I'm going progressively longer in delays. And what that creates is a cascading effect. So when the tone hits the first delay, it gets repeated. And each of those repeats hits the next delay. And then it staggers up all of those repetitions. Now, having the modulations in there helps to soften those tones. So as they're hitting the delays, they're kind of hitting it softly. And then you see right here at the end, I put a cave delay. That's one of my personal favorites just for general ambient playing. But the cave delay then helps to take whatever came through that wasn't already soft, really does get smoothed out running through that big spacious delay. Now, we have all of these cascading delays, so sure, we're going to have an ambient sound, but this is where the interesting thing part comes in. Every patch that I found and every description that I found online involved multiple controls. So what I mean by that is somebody would post, a patch similar to this where they had multiple delays, but in order to get the freeze effect, they would assign certain parameters to the expression pedal. So you'd have to roll up the expression pedal and then engage a bank of foot switches. And then if you wanted to stop the effect, you'd have to disengage the bank and then roll off the expression pedal. And some patches even had such a specific order that if you didn't do this complicated dance in the right way, then you would get the freeze effect, would get permanently stuck on. And the multiple controls is really what I wanted to address. Now, way back when we showed the initial picture of the MXR Freeze, you'll notice it has one button. Now, before you rush down into the comments and kind of explain to me that there are different modes that you can set, which there are, the mode that I wanted to emulate was the first mode that comes on that pedal, and it's the momentary switching mode. So that means you just play your chord, push down on the button, and hold it. And when you're holding the button, it's playing that tone, and you can play over top of it. When you let go of the button, your tone fades away. So that's this one button momentary kind of mode that I wanted to recreate. So the way that I did that was I chose one of the foot switches, and when we do the playing samples, you'll kind of see I just have one switch on this patch, and it says freeze. I've set it to momentary, and I'm going to go to this bypass controller sign parameter, and you can see over here, foot switch 9 is the switch that I chose. And I have assigned, I believe it's 9 different parameters, 7 or 8 different parameters to be linked to one switch. So here's what we go. We're going to go through this in order. If you look up here, these delays, what I wanted to do is I don't want tons of delays to be on after I engage the effect. So our delay pedals, you can see here, going down here, the bypass, the Adriatic delay, our top one, will turn off. The ping pong delay will disengage. It will turn off, but we'll see that this is the one that we use to kind of carry out our freeze effect. And then the other two, I leave them on, but I bring down their mix so that when we're soloing over top, we don't have this really pronounced delay. So turning off delays and bringing them down are all linked to foot switch 9. And as I also said, the chorus pedal that we have here and the phaser pedal that we have here are also linked to the foot switch, and they will turn off. So that effect goes away after we've captured the freeze. Now, I wanted a little punch, I wanted a little boost for the soloing part, so I added a drive pedal here, and you can see right now it's off. It's off because I wanted it to be the opposite of what's going on. I don't want it involved in creating the frozen effect, but I want it to come back and give us a little boost when we have it. So it is also attached to foot switch 9, but it only turns on when I press down. Now, the most important part here is going to be this last one. So I want to show the mixing that we're doing here. So if you look at, the feedback, If I go just to the edit page, so I'm on this last delay, and I chose the last delay to be the one that we're going to kind of use to create this infinite loop. So everything feeds into this last delay pedal, and you can see here that just as it is, without pressing the switch, I've got this 40% feedback. So that means that it's a pretty long feedback time. It's gonna kind of give us several repeats, but I'm gonna reach over and I'm gonna press down, and I have assigned this mix parameter to change. Whenever I engage the switch, it's gonna change from 40%, and you can see that when I press freeze, it moves up to 100. Now, two things happened. It moved up to 100 and it completely grayed out, which means it bypasses. So when I let go, it engages and goes back down to 40%. But when I press it, it turns the pedal off, so it removes it from the chain, but it switches to 100% feedback, which is infinite feedback. It will repeat and repeat and repeat as long as that's 100. Now I'm over here holding the button because when I let go, I want the 100 to stop. The way that this model works, the reason this effect works is because it will still produce that sound when it's bypassed because it's set to 100. Nothing new will get added to that sound. So that's why we can solo over top. It won't feed into that infinite loop. But then we want it, when I let go, we want it to go back down to a number less than 100 because we want it to fade away. I might want to play an E chord and solo over top of it and then let that fade away. And then I want to play an A chord and solo over top of that. So I want to have this option of creating the freeze effect for as long as I want and then letting it go away. And that is how we do it. We're using one pedal and we're using this infinite repeat and then back down to a normal repeat to achieve that. So that's basically how this is set up. And so now we're going to get a guitar plugged in, we'll get a view of the pedal board, and we'll kind of take you through the tones and show you some playing techniques to also help create this effect. So we'll be back in just a minute. All right, we're all set up here, and really quickly, I just want to show you kind of what that momentary switch does. As we said before, we want all of these settings and effect pedals to come on and off momentarily. We don't want to click the switch and have to click it again. So if you look down here, I'm just going to kind of try to use the edge of my foot so you can see that when I press down, the light comes on and you can see on the screen the certain pedals turn on and turn off. But as soon as I lift my foot, that ring goes away. So it doesn't, I can press it, press it, press it. It won't stay on unless I press down and hold it. And that's the key to mimicking this particular mode of the MXR Freeze. So in terms of sound, the general ambient tone, I'm just here in a middle setting on a Telecaster. So I'm just gonna play a couple things so you can kind of hear what the ambient tone is. You can hear that we've got delays going all over the place. You can kind of hear some rhythmic things. Now I'm gonna change what I do. I'm actually gonna put the pick down and I'm just gonna play kind of some finger picking. I'm gonna roll the tone off so that it's a little warmer, duller, and then you can hear right there, just by changing how I play and changing one of the settings on a guitar, I can actually take away some of that harshness. So here's what I'm gonna do. With this, I'm gonna play the note and then I'm gonna engage freeze. Then I'm gonna bring back in the tone, I'm gonna get my pick, and I'm gonna just play a little bit over top of that so you can kind of hear what's going on. So once again, I'll get my foot here ready. I'm just gonna play just kind of an E, just a generic E tone. Now you hear a little bit of that beat in the background. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to release that and let that effect go away. I'm going to try it one more time. I'm going to try to really eliminate some of that beating pattern. So just now when you hear that, it's a subtle pad. There's less of a beating tone. So again, with that freeze engaged, that tone's going to go on forever. So I'm going to bring back the tone just a little bit, and you can start to hear that when I play, it's still an ambient sound, but it doesn't have tons of repeats. So I can then practice. If I use this as a practice tool, I've got my E tone going, and I can then just practice major sounds, minor sounds. So now if I want to change that, I'm going to release the effect and then play an A or an A sound. I take that back, that's a D sound. So and then if I release it and let it go, I can go back to that. Kind of wait until those harsh repeats kind of end, and then when I click it, you kind of get that back. You're back to this. And then let it fade away. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, until next time, play on, my friends, play on.